Captain Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Celestial Dominion. His 4 eyes watched the star charts with satisfaction. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. They were the strongest, the smartest, and the most advanced beings in the galaxy. His ship was beautiful. Silver metal curved in smooth lines. Blue lights ran along the hull like veins of pure energy. The weapons were elegant plasma cannons that could slice through enemy shields with surgical precision. Everything about Zephyrian ships showed their superiority. They were art and science combined into perfect war machines. "Commander Veltos, report on the fleet status," Vextar said. His voice carried the authority of countless victories. The younger officer's scales shifted from blue to green, showing respect. "Sir, we have 47 vessels ready for the conquest. All plasma arrays are charged. Shield generators are operating at full power. The fleet awaits your command." Vextar nodded. This would be another easy victory. They had conquered hundreds of worlds this way. The pattern never changed. Arrive at a new system. Show the primitive aliens their superior technology. Demand surrender. Most species gave up without a fight. Those who resisted usually lasted less than 1 solar cycle. The Zephyrians believed in clean warfare. They destroyed only what was necessary. Why waste resources? A planet full of dead beings was worthless. Better to keep the population alive and put them to work for the hegemony. This was the civilized way of war. "Tell me about this new system again," Vextar said. Veltos pulled up the data on the main screen. "The locals call it Sol, 3rd planet. From the star is inhabited. They call themselves humans. Early scans show they have achieved basic space travel. They have some orbital stations and a few colonies on nearby worlds. Weapons technology? Primitive. They still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. No energy shields detected. Their ships are made of simple metals and composites. Nothing that should pose any threat to our fleet." Vextar's mouth curved, in what passed for a smile among his people. Another barbaric species clinging to ancient weapons. They probably still fight wars on their planet's surface. The bridge crew made sounds of disgust. Surface warfare was considered the lowest form of combat. Civilized beings fought in space with clean energy weapons. They settled disputes quickly and efficiently. The idea of armies crawling around on planets destroying everything in their path was revolting to advanced minds. "What about their numbers?" Vextar asked. "Intelligence suggests they have perhaps a dozen military vessels in their entire system. Most appear to be patrol craft or cargo ships with added weapons. Nothing larger than our destroyer class." This was even better than expected. Some species had hundreds of ships, even if they were primitive. A dozen vessels would not even require the full fleet. Vextar could probably handle this conquest with just 5 ships. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the forward scouts." "Put it through." The hologram of Scout Commander Zixal appeared. His scales were bright yellow with excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. The humans have something unusual." "Explain." "There is one ship, sir, much larger than the others. Our scouts estimate it to be nearly 3 times the size of our flagship, but the design makes no sense. It appears to be mostly armor plating. Thick, crude metal wrapped around the hull in layers. We cannot understand why they would build something so heavy and slow." Vextar frowned. "Armor plating? How primitive. They must not have discovered shield technology yet. What about weapons?" "This is where it gets strange. Sir, the ship has hundreds of weapon ports, but they all appear to be kinetic launchers. Metal slug throwers, essentially. Some larger ports might be missile tubes. It is like looking at a museum piece from the dark ages of warfare." The bridge crew exchanged amused looks. This was almost insulting. Did the humans really think they could fight advanced plasma weapons with metal bullets? "One ship," Vextar said. Even a large one with primitive weapons should not be a concern. What is your tactical assessment? The ship appears powerful for its technology level, sir. But it has no shields, no plasma weapons, no energy defenses. A single barrage from our main batteries should penetrate that armor easily. The humans probably built it to intimidate other primitive species in their region. Vextar was already losing interest. This conquest would be over before it began. The humans had put all their resources into one large, slow, unshielded target. It would make an impressive wreck to show other species what happened when they resisted the hegemony. Very well. Have the scouts maintain their distance and observe. We will arrive in the system in 2 cycles. Begin standard conquest preparations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Conquest preparations were routine by now. Check all weapon systems, calibrate targeting computers, prepare boarding parties for taking control of enemy facilities, draft surrender terms, plan victory, celebrations. The Zephyrian way of war was perfect in its simplicity. Overwhelming technological superiority made long battles unnecessary. Most fights ended before they really began. The primitive species of the galaxy simply could not compete with advanced energy weapons and defensive shields. Vexitar walked to his private quarters to review the conquest plans. The walls were covered with trophies from past victories. Energy, crystals from the Andorian Collective, metal fragments from Terran Defense Fleet vessels, surrender documents signed by dozens of alien leaders. Soon he would add human artifacts to his collection, perhaps a piece of that oversized ship they were so proud of. It would make an amusing conversation piece. He opened his personal log and began recording his thoughts. Personal log, Captain Vextar, Commanding Officer of the Celestial Dominion. We approach another primitive system for standard conquest operations. The local species, calling themselves humans, appear to be in the early stages of technological development. They have constructed one large vessel using ancient armor plating techniques, but show no signs of advanced energy technology. He paused, watching the stars stream past his viewport. I expect this operation to conclude within 1 solar cycle. The humans will likely surrender after witnessing our superior firepower. Their large ship will serve as an example to other species considering resistance to hegemony expansion. Vextar closed the log and prepared for sleep. In 2 days, he would add another star system to the hegemony. Another species would join the countless others serving the greater glory of Zephyrian civilization. It would be quick, clean, and efficient, just like every conquest before it. He had no way of knowing that everything he believed about warfare was about to change forever. The UHSF Indomitable drifted in the darkness between Jupiter and Mars. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center, watching the long-range sensors track the approaching alien fleet. 47 ships, all moving in perfect formation. They looked like silver needles against the black of space. "Ma'am, we're getting detailed scans now," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the sensor station. "Those ships are fast and maneuverable. Energy signatures suggest some kind of plasma-based weapons. No kinetic weapons detected." Chen nodded. "What about their defenses?" "Energy shields, Captain. Never seen anything like them before. They seem to bend incoming fire away from the hull. Our conventional weapons might have trouble penetrating." "Might have trouble," Chen repeated. "We'll see about that." The Indomitable was not like the alien ships. Where they were elegant curves and flowing lines, the human vessel was all hard angles and brutal efficiency. Armor plating covered every surface in overlapping layers. The hull bristled with weapons turrets, missile pods, and railgun batteries. It looked exactly like what it was, a mobile fortress designed to take punishment and keep fighting. "Communications? Any word from Earth?" Chen asked. "Last transmission was 18 hours ago, ma'am. Command confirms we are authorized to defend human space by any means necessary. No negotiation, no surrender." Chen allowed herself a thin smile. That was exactly what she wanted to hear. The Indomitable was the newest and most powerful ship in the United Human Space Force. It had been built with one purpose: to show any hostile aliens that humanity would not go quietly into the night. "Captain," called the tactical officer, "the alien fleet is slowing. They're moving into what looks like a standard battle formation about 2 million kilometers out." On screen, the main display showed the alien fleet spreading out in a perfect semicircle. Their ships gleamed like polished metal. Even from this distance, Chen could see they were beautiful in their own way. Clean, efficient, advanced. They were also about to learn why human ships looked like flying scrapyards. "Incoming transmission, Captain. The aliens want to talk." "Put them through." The screen flickered and showed an alien face. 4 eyes, scaled skin that shifted colors, and an expression of supreme confidence. When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound smooth and cultured. "Primitive beings of Sol system. I am Captain Vextar of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Your system is now claimed for the glory of our empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for integration into our civilization. Resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary destruction." Chen looked at the alien for a long moment. Then she leaned forward in her command chair. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Force. You are in human space without permission. You have one chance to turn around and leave. If you do not, we will defend ourselves." The alien's eyes widened slightly. Clearly, it had not expected defiance. "You do not understand, primitive human. We have 47 advanced warships. You have 1 crewed vessel. Surrender now, and your species will be treated well as servants of the hegemony." "Come and take it," Chen said, and cut the transmission. The bridge crew exchanged looks. They had trained for this moment, but knowing it was really happening, sent adrenaline through every human on the ship. "Ma'am," said the weapons officer, "should we power up the main guns?" "Negative. Let them make the first move. I want to see what these plasma weapons can do." They did not have to wait long. The alien fleet began moving forward in their perfect formation. Energy readings spiked as their weapons charged. "Captain, they're targeting us with everything they have. 47 ships, all weapons locked on." "Steady as she goes. All hands, prepare for incoming fire. Damage control teams to stations." The alien ships fired as one. Brilliant streams of blue plasma shot across space toward the Indomitable. The beams were beautiful, like liquid starlight racing through the dark. They struck the human ship with tremendous force. Energy cascaded across the armor plating in spectacular displays of light and heat. Metal glowed white-hot where the plasma touched it. On the alien flagship, Captain Vexistar watched the fireworks with satisfaction. No ship could survive that much concentrated firepower. The humans had just learned the price of defying the hegemony, but when the light faded, the Indomitable was still there. Armor plating was scorched and melted in places. Some outer hull sections were completely burned away. But the massive human ship continued on its course, apparently undamaged where it mattered. "Impossible," breathed Vextar. "Nothing could survive that barrage." On the human ship, damage reports were coming in from all decks. "Outer hull breach on sections 7 through 12. Armor holding on levels 2 and 3. No damage to primary systems. Casualty report, 3 injured, none serious." Chen nodded calmly. The Indomitable had been designed to take hits like that and keep fighting. Multiple armor layers, redundant systems, and careful compartmentalization meant that surface damage rarely affected the ship's ability to fight. "Well," she said, "now it's our turn. All weapons target the lead ship. Full spread." "Aye, Captain." Railguns charged and ready, missile tubes loaded, nuclear warheads armed. "Fire!" The Indomitable unleashed hell. Railgun rounds shot out at a significant fraction of light speed. Each tungsten slug carried the kinetic energy of a small asteroid. Behind them came swarms of missiles, their nuclear warheads glowing like tiny suns. The alien captain watched in confusion as what looked like simple metal projectiles raced toward his fleet. His energy shields would deflect them easily. These primitive weapons posed no threat to advanced Zephyrian technology. The first railgun round hit his flagship's shields and passed right through them like they were not there. The kinetic slug punched through the elegant alien hull and exploded out the other side in a shower of debris. Vexitar stared in shock as his beautiful ship shuddered under the impact. How was this possible? Energy shields stopped energy weapons. They were not designed to stop physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. More rounds struck his ship and the vessels around him. The aliens watched in horror as their sleek, advanced warships were literally torn apart by crude metal bullets. Holes appeared in their hulls, atmosphere vented into space. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years were reduced to scrap metal in seconds. Then the missiles arrived. Nuclear fire blossomed across the alien formation. Ships that had survived the railgun barrage were consumed by miniature stars. In moments, a dozen Zephyrian vessels simply ceased to exist. "Retreat!" Vextar shouted. "All ships, emergency withdrawal!" But Captain Chen was not done yet. As the aliens tried to pull back, she gave another order. "Launch fighters. Show them what humans do to invaders." Human fighter craft poured out of the Indomitable's launch bays. They were small, fast, and heavily armed. More importantly, they were piloted by beings who had learned to fight in the hardest school of all, against their own species. The aliens thought they knew war. They were about to learn they had never seen anything like human warfare. Captain Vextar watched his perfect formation crumble into chaos. Ships that had conquered star systems were being torn apart by what looked like simple metal projectiles. His mind could not process what he was seeing. "How are they penetrating?" "Our shields?" he demanded. "Sir, their weapons are not energy-based," replied his tactical officer, scales shifting to pale yellow with fear. "Our shields are designed to deflect plasma and laser weapons. These kinetic projectiles pass right through the energy barriers." Another railgun round struck a destroyer off their starboard side. The tungsten slug punched through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. The beautiful vessel split in half, its crew venting into space along with clouds of atmosphere and debris. "This is impossible," Vextar said. "No civilized species uses such primitive weapons." "Sir, incoming missiles. Nuclear warheads detected." The first nuclear torpedo struck a cruiser that was trying to retreat. The ship disappeared in a ball of white fire that hurt to look at even through the filtered view screen. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding gas and radioactive particles. Vextar had seen weapons of mass destruction before. Most species developed them at some point in their evolution. But civilized beings put such barbaric tools aside once. They achieved energy weapons. Nuclear weapons were too destructive, too wasteful. They destroyed everything, including the resources you were trying to capture. These humans were using them as standard ship-to-ship weapons. "Emergency evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Get us out of their firing range." But the human ship was not done. As his fleet tried to withdraw, small craft began pouring out of launch bays along the Indomitable's hull. Fighters, dozens of them, racing toward the alien formation at speeds that seemed reckless. "Sir, enemy fighters incoming. Should we deploy our interceptors?" "Yes, launch all squadrons. Show these primitives how real pilots fight." Zephyrian. Fighters were works of art. Graceful curves, efficient plasma cannons, energy shields that made them nearly invulnerable to primitive weapons. They moved through space like dancers, each maneuver calculated for maximum effectiveness with minimum energy expenditure. The human fighters looked like flying bricks in comparison. Angular, heavily armored, covered in weapon pods and missile racks. They had no grace, no elegance. They were pure function over form. The two fighter forces met in the space between the fleets. Zephyrian pilots fired precise plasma bursts, targeting engine systems and weapon mounts. They aimed to disable, not destroy. Captured enemy fighters could provide valuable intelligence. The humans had different ideas. Lieutenant Maria Santos piloted her fighter straight into the alien formation. Her targeting computer locked onto the nearest enemy craft, and she fired everything she had. Missiles, autocannons, and plasma bolts filled the space around the elegant alien fighter. The Zephyrian pilot tried to evade, but the human weapons tracked him. A missile struck his port wing, damaging his maneuvering systems. He expected the human to move on to another target, or perhaps attempt to capture his disabled craft. Instead, Santos rammed her fighter directly into his ship. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human pilots who ran out of ammunition used their ships as weapons. When their engines failed, they activated self-destruct charges to take nearby enemies with them. When their fighters were too damaged to continue fighting, they aimed for the largest alien ship they could reach and went full throttle. Captain Vextar watched in horror as his elite fighter squadrons were decimated, not by superior technology, but by suicidal tactics that defied all logic. "They are destroying themselves to kill us," he said in disbelief. "This is madness." "Sir, the enemy ship is launching boarding pods." "Boarding pods? They want to capture our ships?" "Unknown. Sir, the pods are heading for the damaged vessels in our rear guard." Vextar almost laughed. The humans were going to board Zephyrian ships. With their primitive technology and crude weapons, his Marines would make short work of any boarding parties. The first human pod attached itself to the hull of a damaged destroyer. Cutting charges burned through the armor plating, and human Marines poured inside. They wore bulky armor and carried projectile weapons that looked ancient compared to Zephyrian plasma rifles. The alien crew prepared to repel boarders. They took defensive positions and waited for the primitive humans to walk into their trap. The humans did not walk. They ran. Sergeant Mike Rodriguez led his squad through the alien corridors like a pack of wolves. When they encountered resistance, they did not take cover or try to outmaneuver the enemy. They charged straight at the alien positions, using their armor to absorb plasma fire while they closed to point-blank range. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Their weapons were designed for precise long-range combat. They had no experience with enemies who would run directly into their fire to get close enough for hand-to-hand combat. Rodriguez tackled an alien Marine and drove his combat knife into the creature's throat. Behind him, his men used shotguns and assault rifles to clear the corridors with devastating efficiency. "Sir," called his radio operator, "charges are set. Recommend immediate withdrawal." "Negative," Rodriguez replied, reloading his weapon. "We continue the sweep. I want every alien on this ship dead or unconscious before we blow it." This was not how boarding actions were supposed to work. Civilized species boarded ships to capture them, not to slaughter the crew and destroy the vessel. But the humans moved through the alien ship like an unstoppable force, killing everything in their path. When they were done, they activated fusion charges and evacuated. The destroyer disappeared in a brief star. On the Celestial Dominion, Captain Vexistar received reports from across his fleet. 17 ships destroyed, 12 more heavily damaged. Fighter squadrons reduced to scattered survivors, boarding parties wiped out to the last being. In return, they had inflicted minor surface damage on one human ship. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through." Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen. Her uniform was neat, her expression calm. She looked like she had just finished a routine training exercise, not a battle that had destroyed a third of his fleet. "Captain Vextar, this is your final warning. Leave our system now, or we will destroy every one of your ships." "You cannot be serious," Vextar replied. "You have one ship. We still have 30 vessels." "Then you haven't been paying attention. We don't fight like you do. We don't aim to disable or capture. We fight to destroy. Every human on this ship would rather die than let you threaten our families and our home. Can you say the same about your crew?" Vextar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments with expressions of shock and fear. These beings had trained for war, but not this kind of war. Not total, merciless, destructive war where the enemy would sacrifice everything to stop you. "This is not how civilized beings conduct warfare," he said. Captain Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Captain, we've been fighting wars on our planet for over 10,000 years. We've had world wars that killed hundreds of millions. We've built weapons that could sterilize our entire world. We know exactly how to kill, and we're very good at it. The only thing that keeps us from destroying ourselves is that we're even better at protecting what we love." She leaned forward. "You want to see uncivilized? Keep pushing, and I'll show you what humans do to threats we can't negotiate with." The human way of war captain Vextar tried to make sense of what he was witnessing. His fleet had been reduced to 30 ships, and they were all pulling back from the lone human vessel. This went against everything he had learned about warfare in his 3 centuries of military service. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting more human ships approaching from the inner system." "How many?" 12 vessels, sir. Much smaller than their war cruiser, but they appear to be heavily armed." Vextar felt a moment of relief. Finally, something that made sense. The humans had other ships, and now they were bringing reinforcements. This would be a proper fleet engagement, fought according to the rules of civilized warfare. He was wrong again. The approaching human ships were not coming to form a battle line or coordinate their attack with the Indomitable. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, and passenger liners that had been hastily fitted with weapons. Their crews were not professional military. They were civilians who had grabbed whatever weapons they could find when the alien fleet arrived. "Captain," Chen watched the approaching ships on her tactical display. The freighter Shanghai Express had strapped missile pods to its cargo bays. The mining ship Lucky Strike had mounted rail guns where its ore processors used to be. Even the passenger liner New Geneva was armed with improvised weapons cobbled together, from mining charges and industrial equipment. "Ma'am," reported her communications officer, "Captain Morrison of the Shanghai Express requests permission to engage the enemy." "Denied," Chen replied. "This is a military matter. Civilian ships should withdraw to safe distance." "Ma'am," Captain Morrison says, and I quote, "With respect, Captain Chen, these aliens threatened our families. We're not running anywhere." Chen looked at the display showing the makeshift fleet approaching the battle zone. Every ship was broadcasting the same message on military frequencies. "We stand ready to defend human space." She had trained her entire career for this moment, humanity's first contact with hostile aliens. She had imagined it would be her ship alone, standing between Earth and the enemy. Instead, she was watching ordinary people in converted cargo, ships volunteering to fight an advanced alien fleet. It was the most human thing she had ever seen. "All civilian vessels, this is Indomitable," she broadcast. "Take positions behind our formation. Coordinate your attacks with our tactical computer. And thank you." Captain Vextar watched the human reinforcements take position. Their ships were even more primitive than the war cruiser. Some looked like they had been built in scrap yards. Others were obviously civilian vessels with weapons bolted on as an afterthought. "Sir," his intelligence officer said, "we are intercepting human communications. It appears these are not military vessels. They are civilian ships with volunteer crews." "Civilians?" Vextar could not hide his shock. "They brought civilians to fight a space battle." "Sir, it gets worse. We are detecting multiple transmission sources throughout their system. Every human colony, space station, and orbital platform is broadcasting the same message." "What message?" "They are volunteering to fight, sir." Every human settlement is asking for weapons and demanding the right to defend their system. This was unprecedented. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Zephyrians had never encountered a species where civilians wanted to fight. Most intelligent beings understood that warfare was for professional soldiers. Civilians were supposed to surrender when their military was defeated, then accept integration into the conquering empire. These humans were different. They were not just willing to fight, they were eager to fight. Men, women, even their young were demanding weapons and asking to join the battle. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human war cruiser." Captain Chen appeared on screen again. Behind her, Vextar could see human crew members working calmly at their stations. These people had just fought a battle that would have left most species in shock, but they acted like it was routine. "Captain Vextar, I want you to understand something about humans. We did not learn to fight by conquering other species. We learned to fight by fighting each other." The screen changed to show images from human history, armies clashing with primitive weapons, cities burning under bombardment, massive explosions that could be seen from space. For 10,000 years, we waged war on our own planet. We fought over land, resources, ideas, and beliefs. We built weapons that could destroy entire continents. We created strategies for total warfare, the complete destruction of the enemy's ability to fight. More images flashed past. Soldiers. In foxholes, their faces grim with determination. Pilots flying damaged aircraft into enemy targets. Infantry charging machine gun positions with nothing but courage and desperation. We learned that the only way to truly win a war is to make the enemy understand that the cost of fighting you is higher than any possible gain from victory. We call it mutually assured destruction. If you threaten our survival, we will make sure that defeating us costs you everything. The images changed to show human space technology, massive orbital weapons platforms, ships that looked more like flying fortresses than exploration vessels, space stations bristling with enough firepower to sterilize planets. When we reached the stars, we brought our military knowledge with us. Every human ship can fight. Every human colony is armed. Every human citizen knows how to kill enemies and how to die for their people. Captain Chen leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. "You came here expecting to fight soldiers, Captain, but you are not fighting soldiers. You are fighting humanity. All of it. Every man, woman, and child in this system would rather die than become your slaves." The transmission ended, leaving Vexitar staring at a blank screen. "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "I have been analyzing their ship design philosophy. It explains everything." "Explain." "Human ships are not built to win battles, sir. They are built to survive battles. Look at their war cruiser. Multiple armor layers, redundant systems, compartmentalized design. It can take damage that would destroy our ships and continue fighting." "But why build ships like that?" "Because humans expect to be hurt, sir. They plan for their ships to be damaged, their crews to be wounded, their weapons to be destroyed. Then they build everything to keep fighting anyway." Vextar began to understand. Zephyrian ships were designed for quick, clean victories. Human ships were designed for long, brutal fights where victory went to whoever could endure the most punishment. "Sir, we are receiving reports from our damaged vessels. The humans are not taking prisoners." "What do you mean?" "Any Zephyrian crew member who tries to surrender is ignored. The humans continue attacking until our ships are completely destroyed. They are not interested in capturing vessels or taking captives. This violated every convention of civilized warfare. Prisoners were valuable for intelligence gathering and prisoner exchanges. Captured ships provided technology and resources. Destroying everything was wasteful and barbaric, but it was also terrifyingly effective." "Sir," the communications officer said, "the human civilian ships are moving into attack formation. They are requesting targeting data for an assault on our fleet." Vexitar watched in disbelief as converted cargo ships and mining vessels prepared to attack his advanced warships. The humans were not just willing to fight, They were treating this battle like it was their duty, their honor, their right. He was beginning to realize that everything the Zephyrian hegemony believed about warfare was wrong. The battle had raged for 6 hours. Captain Vexitar's fleet was down to 18 ships, and they were all damaged. The human war cruiser Indomitable looked like it had been through a metal shredder, but it kept fighting. Huge sections of armor. Plating were gone. Weapons turrets had been blasted away. Atmosphere leaked from dozens of hull breaches, but the massive ship continued to fire. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessel is changing course. They are heading directly toward us." Vextar looked at the tactical display. The Indomitable was indeed turning toward his flagship, but something was wrong with its movement. The ship was not maneuvering properly, its engines were flickering, and its course was slightly unsteady. "Are they trying to ram us?" "Unknown, sir. Their trajectory will bring them into collision range in 14 minutes. On the Indomitable, Captain Chen surveyed the damage reports scrolling across her screens. Main engines at 30% power, primary weapon systems offline, hull breaches on 15 decks, over 200 crew members dead or wounded. But they were still alive, and the aliens were still in her system. "Ma'am," reported her chief engineer over the intercom, "we cannot maintain current power levels much longer. Main reactor is showing stress fractures. If we push too hard, we risk a core breach." "How long can you give me full power?" "Maybe 20 minutes, Captain. After that, we'll have to shut down to prevent an explosion." Chen looked at the alien fleet on her tactical display. 18 ships, still more than enough to threaten Earth if they decided to bypass her and attack the inner system. She had one chance to end this. "All hands, this is the captain. We are going to execute a ramming attack on the enemy flagship. All crew members should prepare for emergency evacuation. This ship may not survive the next 20 minutes. She paused, then continued. "But we're going to make sure they remember us." Throughout the ship, human crew members continued their duties. Some began moving toward escape pods, but many remained at their stations. They had a job to finish. Captain Vextar received an incoming transmission from the human ship. He accepted it, expecting another surrender demand or perhaps an attempt at negotiation. Instead, he found himself looking at images from human history. The first image showed a narrow mountain pass. A small group of human warriors stood in formation, facing an enormous army. Text appeared below. "Thermopylae, 300 Spartans versus 100,000 Persians. The Spartans fought to the last man." The next image showed a ruined city covered in snow. Soldiers in winter uniforms fought from building to building against overwhelming odds. Stalingrad, 1942. German forces versus Soviet defenders. The city never fell. More images followed. A fortress surrounded by thousands of enemy soldiers. A few dozen defenders fought until their ammunition ran out, then continued fighting with knives and clubs. The Alamo, 1836. "Remember the Alamo," became a battle cry for generations. Each image showed the same pattern. Humans faced with impossible odds, choosing to fight rather than surrender. Sometimes they won through stubborn determination. Sometimes they died to the last person. But they never gave up. "Captain Vextar," came Captain Chen's voice over the transmission. "I want you to understand what you are fighting. Humans have a saying, death before dishonor. We would rather die than live as slaves." The images changed to show the Indomitable itself. Massive engines pushed the damaged ship toward the alien flagship. Weapons that should have been destroyed were somehow still firing. Hull sections that should have collapsed were held together by emergency force fields and the will of the crew. This ship carries 3,000 human beings. Every one of them volunteered to serve. Every one of them knew this day might come. Every one of them is prepared to die to protect humanity. The alien captain watched the approaching human vessel with growing understanding. This was not a military maneuver. This was a demonstration of what his species would face if they continued their conquest. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we could destroy their ship before it reaches us. Full barrage, concentrated fire." "No," Vextar said quietly. "I want to see how far they will go." The Indomitable continued its approach. Vextar could see the details of the damage now. Entire sections of the hull had been burned away. The ship's elegant lines were gone, replaced by twisted metal and improvised repairs. It looked like a wreck that should have stopped functioning hours ago. But humans were still aboard, still fighting, still coming. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving multiple transmissions from throughout the human system. All colonies, all space stations, all orbital platforms are broadcasting the same message." "What message?" "They are declaring their intention to fight us to the last person. Every human settlement in the system is prepared for siege warfare. They have enough supplies and weapons to resist for years." Vextar stared at the tactical display. Even if he destroyed the approaching war cruiser, even if he defeated their makeshift fleet, he would still face armed resistance on every human world. These beings would not surrender. They would fight until they were all dead. And killing them all would take his entire fleet. Maybe more than one fleet. "Sir, the human ship is within ramming range. Impact in 90 seconds. On the Indomitable, Captain Chen gave her final orders. "All crew to evacuation stations. Emergency beacon activated. When we hit their ship, the explosion should disable their flagship and damage the ships around it." "Ma'am," said her executive officer, "there are still 300 crew members who refuse to evacuate. They want to stay at their posts until the end." Chen nodded. She had expected nothing less. "Very well. Tell them it has been an honor to serve with them." She opened a channel to the alien flagship. "Captain Vexatar, this is Captain Chen. In 60 seconds, my ship is going to ram yours. We are going to die, but we are going to take you with us. And after we are gone, there will be more ships, more crews, more humans willing to do exactly the same thing." She paused. "The question you need to ask yourself is this: how many of your ships are you willing to lose to conquer a species that will never stop fighting you?" Captain Vexistar looked at the approaching human vessel. 30 seconds to impact. He could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting for orders. He could destroy the human ship, continue the conquest, and probably succeed eventually. But at what cost? His fleet would be crippled. Thousands of his people would die, and even if they won, they would inherit a system full of armed, determined humans who would resist for generations. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet. "Emergency withdrawal. Full retreat to jump distance." "Sir," his tactical officer looked confused. "We can still win this battle." "No," Vextar said, watching the human war cruiser continue its approach. "We cannot win this war." The Zephyrian fleet began moving away from the Sol system at maximum speed. Behind them, the Indomitable adjusted course to follow, but its damaged engines could not match their velocity. On the human ship, Captain Chen watched the aliens retreat. "Ma'am," her communications officer said, "they are leaving the system. All enemy vessels are withdrawing." Chen slumped back in her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew began cheering. They had done it. They had driven off an alien invasion with one ship and a handful of converted civilian vessels. But Chen was already thinking about the future. The aliens would go back to their empire and report what they had found. Other species would hear about humans and their way of war. Some would be deterred. Others would be intrigued. A few might even be inspired. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had mastered the art of warfare not through conquest, but through necessity. They had turned survival into a weapon that could defeat any enemy willing to pay the price. Captain Vextar sat in his command chair as his fleet jumped to hyperspace. His personal log would make interesting reading for the hegemony leadership. An entire conquest fleet, defeated by one ship and a handful of civilian volunteers. But he would recommend something else in his report. The Zephyrian hegemony should leave the humans alone, not because they could not be defeated, but because defeating them would cost more than any possible gain. He had learned something today. There was a difference between knowing how to fight and needing to fight. The humans needed to fight in a way that civilized species had forgotten, and that made them the most dangerous beings in the galaxy.